This mutation is called The Longest Night, and it is being played on Dead of Night. We have 3 mutators active. We have Photon Overload, we have Just Die, and we have Long Range. And now I'm just going to give you a little bit of a heads up that this mutation is going to be really long. This is a 33-minute game. Rip my voice towards the end of this mission. 33-minute game, and this is going to be a semi kind of meme build for this mutation. So you are going to be 100% forgiven if you do not watch all the way throughout this entire video. Now, right off the bat, I want to say Punisher and Orton are part of the German co-op community. They do play mutations, and I've actually been very grateful for Punisher's clan. He has a clan for some of the German-speaking players, and I've been very grateful for their contributions to the weekly mutation runs. So usually what normally happens is when a new set of weekly mutations come out, we have people like Callaghan and Jameson, and we have maybe Lauren submitting their replays, and they usually take the dibs on the more interesting or the more difficult mutations, and they will usually do their meme builds there. But some of these mutations, which are reasonably straightforward, not really difficult, but they're not really easy either. There's just nothing very special that you can do on it, and usually these ones do end up getting no contributions from people. People don't really have any submissions there, so I'm actually very grateful for Punisher's clan for submitting these replays, because they actually, I think they go through pretty much all these weekly mutations in advance, so it makes my life a little bit easier. So a big thank you to Punisher over there. And speaking of which, Punisher also has a YouTube channel. I'll give him a little bit of a plug. Go check it out if you are interested in hearing his wonderful, soothing voice play and cast some Starcraft. So we are already at night number 1 while I was busy giving that long introduction. But yeah, overall not really too difficult of a set of mutators. I think it's going to be a little bit annoying depending on what special infested you get. So for example, the long range, like if you have a choker, just gives them a little bit of an extra range, which makes them a little bit more annoying as well. You can see this over here as well, just being generally just more annoying than they would normally be. So that is one thing that does actually affect them. The other thing to also note is that Just Die is probably going to be the more dangerous of all the 3 mutators that are going to be active in this mutation. So Just Die, as you can see, has affected the special infested, which affects everything except the structures on this map. Now, the one thing that does affect the structures on this map is the Photon Overload. So the Photon Overload does make it so that they get a little bit more annoying. These structures will start to fight back as well. But as usual, like, it's not really too difficult of something to handle, especially if you have a commander like Swann who has just very superior kind of defense on this mission. So if you're playing Swann, you can just basically put down, as you've done over here, the Flaming Betties and put down a few Blaster Billies on the back line, and you can just hold this indefinitely. Just die or not just die, it doesn't really matter. You can basically hold indefinitely on this mission. Now, the one thing I would recommend if you do intend on doing this kind of strategy with Swann is that you should be rushing your laser drill upgrades out as quickly as possible. One of the things that Swann can do is he can go for a full defensive build on this mission, but what he can also do is get his armory out and get his laser drill and use his drill to start clearing out structures while he is defending during the night and during the day as well. So that is something that can be done. You can see here Super Gary already out and starting to work away on the onslaught of infested that are attacking. One thing that's interesting actually is that Swann is being somewhat supply blocked, which is again kind of odd, but he seems to be floating at around 23 supply. Not really sure why, but
swarm forces under attack.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. I saw supply drop a little bit. Not really sure what happened over there. But you can see we're getting close now to the end of night number 1, and these commanders are going to start pushing out in this mission. Gary, one thing that can also be done now that I've actually noticed is that Stetmann can start spraying his satellites across here, and he can use Gary to just start sniping out the structures. Now, do know that Photon Overcharge is going to be available on this mission, and it is going to be active. So things like this can happen. So if you're not really paying attention, you might end up in accidentally losing your stuff. You can see here, Stetmann is going for a little bit of a non-orthodox build here. An unorthodox build. He's going for a bunch of Broodlords. He's already gotten his Lococeptor base upgrade, and he's gotten his Stetmann cannon as well. Now, the other thing you can also do is, especially if you're playing on this mission, you don't necessarily have to deal with the ground forces here. Now, you have to be obviously a little bit careful when you are dealing with the Photon Overload upgrade, or the Photon Overload Mutator, which can cause you a few problems, but you don't necessarily have to deal with the ground units here, because he's Stetmann already moving around, and he has a bunch of Broodlords already added to the mix here. Swann, on the other hand, is... what is Swann doing? Swann is now going to get his armory. So yeah, like I said, the armory is a little bit delayed here. The armory should kind of be rushed out as quickly as possible, because here, generally for Swann, he's not really going to be doing... He's not really going to need a lot of supply, and, once you put down these kinds of turrets, Swann's turrets are really, really good. They're not really necessary when it comes to building your units out. Getting a few siege tanks can help, and I would definitely recommend getting a few siege tanks, but Swann's laser drill upgrade should be a top priority so that you can actually help your ally to clear the mission a little bit faster. Now, I do want to talk about Swann a little bit more on Dead of Night, because this is something that I don't really see very many people do. But if you are looking for optimal positioning, Player 1's positioning is a lot better for Swann if you want to use the strategy that I am recommending with using the laser drill to clear and the call downs as well. So one of the things that happens is that if Swann is in this position, the laser drill just moves over in this location, and just because it is here, he gets slightly more optimal targeting for his concentrated beams. So that is something to take into consideration if you do intend on playing Swann. And additionally, if you do want to know how to target your laser drill, concentrated beams, and pulse cannons in the most optimal locations, you can check out Starcraft2Co-op's Swann page. The information is available near the bottom. There's a whole section on Dead of Night on the Swann page. It's on the Swann Commander page. It is not on the Dead of Night page here. You can see the Super Gary already starting to push through. I don't think Gary even needs to go back to the base to defend, because Swann is going to have no problems defending this by himself. So yeah, Gary can actually just go ahead and just start clearing. It's going to be a little bit slower for him. Obviously, the Broodlords are going to be a little bit more taxing trying to deal with some of the infested. But I don't think Gary needs to actually come back with his army here, because Swann basically has this thing pretty much locked down. And I guess you can see here, we already have some Flaming Betties. These are pretty much the optimal kind of static defense that is required. You can see, I think what's been happening over here is that these infested have they have 7 range. I think that's what's happened. I think Swann may have built some supply depots here, and these infested actually started. I was not aware that they could do that. That long range mutator here is actually much more nasty than I was expecting. I think that's what happened. I think Swann put down his supply depots here, and then these infested actually killed the supply depots here, which is again kind of annoying. But yeah, so he has chosen to salvage those structures here. That will force the infested to move up all towards his area here of splash damage. And you can see what I mean here, that Swann is going to have absolutely no problems dealing with any of this. And one of the things to also note is that Swann's static defense is amazing. When he has the fire suppression systems upgrade, he basically does not have any issues here in dealing with anything. I think Gary might have also... Did Gary die? Yeah, Gary somehow managed to die. Oh, right, there's a choker. Okay. I was gonna say, is how can Gary die when it's pretty much impossible for him to die, and then I see these chonkers over here that are causing some problems. But just see now what'll happen. We do have a very nice concentrated beam. I think, what are the masteries that have been set here? Okay, so the concentrated beam width is not selected here. We have the combat drop duration instead. So this is what I was recommending earlier, is that if you do want to go for a concentrated beam kind of Swann defensive build, you can go for the concentrated beam mastery here, and you can go for the drill upgrade mastery as well. And when you do that, you can get your drill out really, really quickly and start working away on these structures. The general idea is you basically put down a starport and get some Hercules out to just give you vision, and you just basically A-click with your drill onto each one of the infested structures. You ignore everything else. Just see the range of these chokers, which is what makes them so annoying to deal with. They are at 11 range right now. They outrange pretty much everything over there, which is going to be a little bit more annoying for Swann. But like, look at these fire suppression systems. They are keeping these structures alive. And again, you can see here some of these other, some random locust actually gets got by the choker here. The choker will eventually get burned by the day. But again, it is up to these commanders to try and clear as quickly as possible, because night number 3 will be coming up and they will need to be able to defend on all 4 sides of the ramp. Now, this is seeing the effect of the long-range mutator with the special infested does mean that it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Swann to defend. Generally, Swann is reasonably decent when it comes to defending against these kinds of missions, especially on a mission like Dead of Night. Swann doesn't really have any problems dealing with the infested, but just because that the long range mutator is active, it does make it a little bit more annoying for Swann to handle, and it's going to be a lot more difficult than I was initially expecting. You can see here that there is a again, just choosing to fight back against the swarm of broodlings? Are they mecha broodlings? Yeah, the mecha broodlings and the lococeptors from Stetmann's broodlords here. What is Swann doing right now? Yeah, Swann is putting down a lot more siege tanks. These siege tanks are actually really good. Has he gotten his range upgrade? He has his range upgrade. So that's pretty much as good as Swann can do in terms of his siege tanks. Those things are still sitting over there. What is actually... Yeah, I think these SCVs are just randomly moving in and repairing these siege tanks. The siege tanks have not been repaired yet. But yeah, see, these guys have like... They have like 14 range, so they do have vision of the special infested. You see now that we have a bunch of siege tanks that are sitting on the top here. I'm not sure. I think this number of siege tanks is fine, but there's a risk that those chokers will be able to see up on the high ground and stun these siege tanks. But I think with that number, I think those siege tanks should be okay. Again, Stetmann just slowly pushing through and just slowly cutting through Amon's bases here. And I wonder if I can actually show the mission completion here. Yeah, so there's 102 structures out of 151 remaining. This is going to be a while before this mission is done. Like, Stetmann is... The Broodlords is not... It's not a very optimal strategy for pushing in, but this is definitely a meme kind of build the Punisher wanted to do. So we are just going to slowly push through and watch these things slowly pick away at the infested structures. I think this whole area should theoretically be done, and I think... One other thing that Stetmann might be able to do is just use his Yamato cannons, or just Yamato all these infested structures, ignoring everything else, because I don't think there's really any reason to be doing anything else here. The one thing that's really good that's happening here is the Lococeptors and the Mecha Broodlings are actually drawing aggro of the Photon overcharge that would normally be attacking Stetmann, which is actually proving very useful for him. So I don't know if Stetmann is going to go back. He wants to go and deal with his bonus objective, which I guess is okay. Yeah, now we have a bunch of Stetmann cannons, and that Virophage is pretty much going to get completely wiped so quickly from the Broodlords here. And I think now Stetmann is going to recall back, and it's going to push out. I think Stetmann could actually push out here. His ally is okay. Look at that Joker shooting from like infinite range. And Joker has like 11 range right there on the siege tanks. The siege tanks are actually doing a good job here at keeping these units busy. And as long as there's no vision of the high ground, these siege tanks are pretty much all safe and okay. I think Stetmann is just helping his ally just handle these chokers, because these chokers can be really deadly if you do not pay attention to your army and you are looking somewhere else, and they will eventually just catch you out and unawares. But I think in this situation, I think Stetmann is basically okay. I think he could just push out. And again, like the other thing I've noticed is the drill upgrade is just slowly finishing up. And this is at the 20-minute mark, so this drill upgrade has been a little bit delayed. So just getting that drill upgrade out a little bit faster can help with clearing these structures, because the pulse cannon now is available. And this spot over here is a very nice spot to use a pulse cannon. It basically takes out... It clears the enemy base here, and it takes out pretty much all the enemy structures, I think, except this one corner infested structure just ends up remaining. And now we can see that the boss infested that we have is going to be nice worms for this mission. and the Night Swarms will start to spawn attack waves. So I think Stetmann might go and just deal with this Night Swarm because he has the mobility available to him. Yeah, so we have Stetmann over here, and now we have a bunch of Broodlords as well. These Night Swarms are not the regular Night Swarms. They have 2,000 HP. They are special boss infested here. You can see just these things are going to be ready. I think I'm actually surprised there's no Stetmann cannon onto this. Yeah, there we go. Those are the Stetmann cannons that pretty much ends up closing up that Night Swarm. And as soon as is reasonably possible to clear that Night Swarm. And what do we have on the upgrades here? Yeah, like basically we have melee weapons, we have flyer weapons. Notice here how Stetmann has not gotten the armor upgrades. Armor upgrades are not necessary, and I guess if Stetmann is floating the gas, like he can go for the, like he can probably start investing in the armor upgrades now. He's not really going to be losing his Broodlords, so he could theoretically go for the armor upgrades now, but again, that is not a necessity. Yeah, he's just basically building Broodlords right now. He just wants to max out on his army. He's pretty much done in terms of that, so I would not fault him for going for armor upgrades as well now, because he has nothing really better to invest in. And Swann is still actually trailing behind a little bit in terms of the upgrades. He's flowing a little bit more gas as well, but you can just see Swann's ability to just slowly defend against this. Some very nice positioning as well on the high ground, keeping the siege tanks safe. One thing you can also do is you can put some siege tanks on here, and that basically means your siege tanks are immune against the ground units. Just grab a Hercules and just put them up here. I personally don't do this because usually the mission, when I'm playing Swann, I normally play with a bunch of really good co-op players usually. So we normally clear this mission before like before night number 3. So there's usually no need to put that much defense on the edges when I usually play. But on a longer mission, when you are, if you do want to fortify in your position, you should probably be wanting to put some more siege tanks as well, taking advantage of as much of the position as possible. Now, one thing that is also kind of good, and one thing that is also convenient for these players, is that the special infested that they're dealing with is the chokers and the kaboomers. The chokers are kind of annoying, but you know, it's not as bad as if they were spotters. If spotters were available on this mission would be so much harder because the spotters provide high ground vision for some of the infested. So not only do the spotters start disabling your turrets and start attacking your siege tanks, what can also happen is because they provide that high ground vision, the infested, which already have a really high range as a result of the long range mutator, you can actually start attacking your siege tanks. You could end up taking a lot more losses than you would normally be expecting. That's one thing that is somewhat convenient for these players. This area of the map has been cleared. There's basically just a little bit of a sweep here. We have a small recall here to try and get Stetmann. Stetmann trying to get a little bit more value for the daylight time that he has available. And he's going to end up clearing out some of these structures here. And we have 46 structures remaining, and now he has to push into this enemy base. This enemy base is going to be a little bit more difficult to push in. There is a laser drill now that is slowly starting to aggro through, but his army of Broodlords is pretty much unstoppable. There are so many units out there, and he's basically alternating between the Garrisons and the Steadalites. Also switching between this thing, I'm not even gonna bother reading it, the juice field, just in time to interrupt with charging economy. Yeah. Blizzard really had their fun writing these things. Yeah, these things are just so long and complicated to pronounce. But yeah, you can see here Stetmann basically just moving across like Amon's base here, and it's just nothing that can just stop Stetmann's army. And now I think Stetmann is not. Is Stetmann gonna go back? I don't think he's gonna go back. He's gonna end up clearing out these structures here. There are a few more structures on this side as well, but yeah, I don't think Stetmann needs to go home now. He's just take a look at all of this stuff. I want to show the kill counts, but one of the issues with the kill counts is that the kill counts. Actually, the kill counts won't really matter that much, but yeah, I think because just die only counts once for the kills. Never mind, scrap that plan. I had an idea, but the idea would not work. But I think this area will end up getting cleared. There's a few more structures here, 100 HP left. That structure's gone. Yeah, one thing I would actually like to see is the Stetmann cannons right onto these infested structures. Just help the Stetmann clear out a little bit quicker. These infested that are here are not really that important. We have a few more Stetmann cannons coming out, but it's not really important for Stetmann to like deal with these round units here. Stetmann is wasting a lot of time like aggroing these infested, which is kind of good for his ally because his ally doesn't have to deal with as thick of a spawn than he would normally have to deal with. So, you know, there is a little bit of value here, but since Stetmann is doing the solo clearing on this mission, it'd be nice to see Stetmann actually use his Stetmanic cannons to just focus down the infested structures and ignore everything else and leave all the defense to his ally, because his ally has a good set of defenses here. So there's nothing that'll be clearing going through these defenses here. You just see these infested just get completely wrecked by these siege tanks. And we have another attack waves here that are spawning. Again, not really too much of a problem for Swann to defend, and yeah, you can just see just lots of things just coming up here. This hybrid is just trying to aggro all these broodlings, but Stetmann's broodlords just do not care. They are just going to start pushing through. There's a random yoink here from one of these vipers, and this viper realizes what a huge error it made in the process, because that viper does end up getting wiped very quickly. And yeah, so basically Swann is going full on defense here. He has a bunch of siege tanks, and these siege tanks are going to end up sieging up and getting into position as well. But you can just see like how sad the infested look as they try and just walk through Swann's defenses here. Nothing is going to be able to cut through these defenses. And where did Stetmann go? Stetmann actually went back to the base, which is kind of surprising. We have another... Okay, so we have a couple of Nidus Worms here, so I think Stetmann will probably be going to try and clear this. Yeah, so he's going to be moving in here, and he wants to clear these Nidus Worms out. And one thing you should do is, like, if you are playing this mission, you should probably clear these Nidus Worms as quickly as possible. The attack waves that they end up spawning does get larger and larger, and stronger if they are left up, so... These things pretty much behave the same way as Void Rifts. You should clear them out very quickly. But day number 5 is out, and we are at the 30-minute mark of this game, and I think this is going to be pretty much the end of this mission. Stetmann has already put in the blue field. He just wants to move in as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, no pulse cannon is available, so his ally will not be able to help him push into this side, but his broodlords are now into position, and now he's back to the juice field, and he will end up clearing this enemy base up. You can just see how tanky everything is. Just because Just Die is available, it gives the enemy units a little bit of immunity, which makes it a little bit more annoying, but it just means that enemy units have twice as much health as you would normally be expecting from units of this type, so it does make it a little bit more difficult, and it just makes pushing in a little bit slower in this mission as well. It's just a random Hydralisk over here, just aggroing these Deadlights. I'm not sure where this thing came from, but I think this came up from the Nidus Worm, right? Oh, there are a bunch of like lurkers here with like a lot of range. But unfortunately, you can see why that is not very effective, because unfortunately there's no detection here for Swann. These things are just going to be aggroing some of these lurkers. Lurkers do get stunned by the combat drop, but there is no detection here, so this combat drop doesn't really have anything to do. But at this point, Stetmann has pretty much cleared. There are only 6 infested structures left on the map, all on the bottom side of this enemy base here. And one random lurker here as well. As like, oh, this might be a bit of a problem for me because I cannot hit the flying air units here. But that is the last infested structure done. This is the mission done. 30-minute game. It was definitely a long night, but that is GG.